Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of AV Career Masterminds. Like I say a lot of times, I'm always excited about the guests that I have on. I'm particularly, again, excited about this one. Go ahead, before I say what I need to say, go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know who we're talking to today.
Hi, folks. If you've heard from me recently, my name is Lisle Waldron. I am the Multimedia and Audiovisual Manager for the University of Trinidad and Tobago. It's a pleasure, Jen, to have 5 minutes to see you. It's so
Yes,
much fun.
thank you. I know it's like our day. This has been crazy today,
Haven't
right?
seen you in too long, so I'm happy. I'm happy that I'm here.
Yes, exactly. So just to let everybody know, my first instance of communication with Lisle was he came back, and I don't know, Lisle, if you remember this. It was during I think it was during a HETMA virtual event, and we were talking about hiring and hiring diversity. And as a Steeler fan, I said there should be the Rooney Rule. You fired back a comment to me. I'm like, who is this person? And why is he coming at me with my Steelers? I took kind of offense, but I totally get where you were coming from. And then just listening to you and talking to you and meeting you in person at InfoComm and seeing who you are just the room lights up, I think, when you walk into it. You are just...
Thank you, I guess.
Well, no, in a great way. You just have a vibe and an aura about you that I think everybody loves. Everybody wants to talk to you, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you
trust
are
me,
amazing.
I can introduce you to many people who are like him. Nah. But I think, well, for those who don't know, because I know it was published last year in one of our publications at HETMA, but I'm neurodiverse, I think is the cool term. I'm a high-functioning autistic male. It's a gift and it's a curse. It's like I'm socially awkward, so I always have to find a social purpose. And like I remember messaging you because like you were so, your philosophy and what you wanted was so spot on. But this is one of those cases where like I can't speak to, as an example, being a woman. I can't speak to what the monthly, daily grind of being a woman is. And like when you were going through it, like, yeah, we should have a Rooney Rule. I'm like, you do know the Rooney Rule does not work, right? And like, because I am like a huge football fan, and I am football neutral because I come from Trinidad. I don't have, like, I'm not like you, like I'm a Steeler fan or my dad was a Cowboys fan, or so I just love the sport. And again, because of the autism, I love the psychology and the strategy in it. So I'm looking at you and I'm like, yeah, she's sincere, she's for real. But I think because of that sincerity, I'm going to give her, unfortunately, a taste into the world in the window of my mind. And just to not keep it as an inside joke, basically, what, as short as I can, the issue with the Rooney Rule is, if we look at it, how many black head coaches do we have? How many, and when you go through the math of it, you'll realize that it becomes just a rubber stamp check mark to say we've done what we've needed to do. We believe in diversity. The truth of the fact of the matter is, most people don't believe in diversity because they misunderstand diversity. Diversity is not about giving, it's been co-opted now by a certain segment of society. But DEI has nothing to do with giving people that don't deserve an opportunity, right? So that's what the co-opting, lie has said. And the issue with that is that lie hits us in the chest as people who believe in meritocracy. We immediately, like violently go, oh no, that's bad. DEI therefore is bad. We don't want anything to do with it. That's not what it is. DEI in some ways is not even about, I mean, it helps, but it's not even about people who've crossed every T, dotted every I, risen to the highest office in the organization, but still can't get a seat at the table. What DEI really is about you and your benefit. If you have a team of people that looks like you, sounds like you, and thinks like you, that's where the diversity is lacking, which means you're not going to get the bestest idea on the table. You're going to get the same idea times 10. So that's what diversity and equity and inclusion is about. It's allowing you access to people and talent and resources that you won't have on your day-to-day, and then vice versa. It allows those people and those resources finally to get a chance. And that's all it is. DEI does not say, okay, Lisle, you're now working under Jen because you and Jen, get along well. It does not. It means when Jen is getting her resources and she's trying to hire that person, that I at least get a chance to have a conversation and make a case for me.
Correct. And you are right. And you know, when I said that, like you said, it's the concept, right? I don't know. Again, I'm a female. I'm not a black male. I don't know, right? Everybody, we can try and say, "Oh, I'm going to try and put myself into your shoes and understand what you're going through." No, you can try. You can hear me. You can try and listen, but you're never really going to feel it.
No, and I mean, I'll have to give people who do that no credit, because even
Yeah.
if you're unaware because you lack self-awareness, because I'm the president of the lacking self-awareness team. But even if you are, the mere fact that you recognize that, hey, look, I think we should try to expand our little circle, to me, that is enough in major ways, because it's the first step. It says that there is some sense of self to go, okay, I think we could do better if we hear from somebody that I don't know or is not like me.
Right.
And so I mean, to your credit, which again, yeah, it's just the mere fact that you were going through the philosophy of it. I'm like, yeah, she's on point. Thing is, like you said, you're not a black guy and you're not a black pseudo immigrant, so trust me, it's a double whammy for a non-US citizen.
Right, exactly. And so to that point of giving people a chance, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, I love to understand, one, how you got into the AV industry, because we all kind of fell into the AV industry regardless of where you are in the world. Everybody does.
Everybody.
And part of why I'm doing this podcast and also being on the board of Next Level Learning is we're trying to get more youth and trying to get and work with organizations to help expand that. So how did you get into being in tech?
So I'm a proud high school dropout. I actually never finished high school, funny enough, right? And I think back now, being 44 with an MBA, wanting to do my PhD, I was a troublesome kid. Oh my God, I was the worst. So I ended up basically getting what is the American equivalent of a GED. In the British system, it's like 5 O-level passes. So math and English being the core, it means you could speak, you could read, you could count.
Right.
And then I started in higher ed as a clerical assistant. And
Okay.
I love university culture because it's so classist. My paycheck used to have on it clerical assistant 1 and in brackets unqualified. I was like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Like, you could not do that now in the politically correct age.
You
get
can't.
canceled.
No, you
we got to cancel somebody, right? So my paycheck
Exactly.
used to say clerical assistant 1 unqualified. Because in all fairness, being a secretary was an actual position that had training behind it. There's like exec secretary courses and all that junk.
Yeah.
So I could not get secretary. In effect, what it means is I'm being paid at the lowest end of the salary scale as a secretary. So, and it's fun fact, I went back to my old job a couple of years ago. The filing system is the same one that I just used my autistic brain and figured out. Right? Everything is still in the same place and everybody's just building on it. But the fun fact goes, because again, I've been 6'6", give or take, by quarter inch, give or take, since I was 16 years old.
Oh wow.
So I am often called on to lift things or put things in spaces, right? It sounds familiar, right? So
at 5 foot, yes, you're my
there you go. I'm the go-to on the team.
Yes.
So the then chief technician, I worked in a school of education, and that actually has like put a big asterisk on that little tidbit. Because it changed me in ways that I could only appreciate and speak to this day. But the chief technician was this little guy. He was like, you're right, he's like 5'4", 5'3" or something. He's a little guy. I'm not going to think about it. Rest in peace, Chris. Because he passed some years ago. But Chris started calling me to help him with stuff. In particular, because we are talking 99, 2000, right?
Okay.
So, which is eons ago at this point, right? And it was like, you're talking definite delivered tech at the time. Integration, definitely not for us on the island. We're not there as yet. State of market for integration at the time would have been cost prohibitive for most non-super companies, I would expect. So there I am, lifting this JBL Eon 15 onto its stand and moving this big Sanyo projector, which was like 400 lumens, which is revolutionary at the time. And you're sticking in VGA.
Wasn't 3-gun, was it?
No. I'm old, but I'm not that old. Funny enough, we had a film unit that was developed in the 70s for some grant funding. So I did actually do a lot of content creation and production like that as well. Yep. So I'm accustomed to the Fresnel lighting, and like I could actually do all that too. I haven't done it in years, but I can.
Yeah.
But yeah, so one day my boss, who I was the butt of all jokes for, because of course, again, this is a different time period, people. So don't
Yes.
cancel me for telling the story. But
No.
my boss
Right.
was a lady, Dr. Mohammed. She was a she, and I was her 6'6" secretary, filling your own adult jokes at your leisure. So one day she comes up to me and she goes, Lisle, I'm answering the phone more than you at this point because you're out and about doing tech stuff, right? Because there was a computer lab too, and I was installing software in there and all that jazz. And I look at her like, oh crap, I'm in trouble because I'm like
Yeah.
I'm like 19, I'm a child.
Right.
And she goes, no, Lyle, you're not in trouble, because she knows me by this point. She knows my facial expression. She's like, I've asked you to be transferred under Chris. I'm like, for real? And she's like, yeah. So that was my first foray into any management of technology.
Wow.
As I had to tell somebody in Hetma, they're like, well, they're not the manager at the university. I'm like, yes, you are. Whether you're a technician level 1 or senior co-director of tech at the university, we all manage it. We may have different strategic responsibilities and blah, 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 but we're all tech managers. And the guy was like, and I didn't think about that. It was like, I think in Las Vegas this year at Infocom.
Yeah.
So he appreciated me for that, but it was the same way. So I started managing tech and having my contributions in there since those good old days. So we're talking about old Mac Quadras running on ThinNet, and we're talking about Unix servers running Pine for email that I had to put my fingers in, all of that. Yeah. I'm going back. Like, I don't look it, right? Jen, I remember somebody's like, Lyle, you don't look that old. I'm like, no. Stop.
But you are young. You are a couple years younger than me. So
I'm like, yeah, stop. I'm not that old. Don't do me that, right? Mind you, just as a total, so somebody could laugh. I'm in my car in traffic one day, and you know those kids who sell like water, whatever. A guy comes up, he goes, hey, uncle, you want some water? I'm like, uncle? I like, you did not. Like, I wigged out. I was in a zone for the rest of the day. But yeah, so, you know, I went through all of those things. Of course, more and more projection is coming to the fore because I am in a school of education. So I'm not just supporting higher ed in the abstract. By that, I mean I'm supporting like an engineering program because it's a project in a classroom. I'm literally in a space where my faculty are teaching teachers how to teach. So there are levels to that even being folded into the delivery of services and whatnot. We got our first set of integrations, integrated technologies, AV Tech in 2000, by 2001, I think. We had built a new wing. And by then I had moved up in like 3 or 4 years. I had moved up to be the acting chief technician at that point in time. I went through senior laboratory assistant after I was first level lab assistant and senior lab assistant. Then acting chief technician. That was a problem because in the university's pay scale, the chief technician was a grade 10, which is the highest grade.
Okay.
And there were only like 9 of them in the whole university, right? So here is this kid who's like 20, I think I was like 23 at the time.
Right.
People are upset. Like, this is a problem because I was too young.
Well, and the people above you that are getting there have probably worked for years to get there.
Forever. And this is like the story of my life. Like, what sometimes takes people 10 years, I could figure it out in like a month. And fun fact, I didn't know I was autistic till I was 40. Right. So like
really?
for me, I did not. Like, I was having a whole, episode, and I'm in therapy, and my therapist is like, she's like, you're so smart. I don't know that you don't know this. I go, don't know what? I'm like, you don't like to be touched. You don't like to be hugged. You this. And she starts listing it out. And she's saying it, but I'm in a mess. I can't understand her. She's like, Lyle, you remember numbers, you're bad at names. You remember faces, but you can't remember who the person is because you have no personal connection. I'm like, yeah. She's like, yes, you're autistic, buddy. I'm like, what? I'm like, you're not just throwing that around, right? She's like, no. I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, I didn't find out until I was like 40.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation. Oh, yeah. That's very interesting to me. But that's episode 2 as well.
Yeah, right. So there I am, and I acted for 2 years, and there was actually an intervention with HR, and I have to always give my HR department at my old university credit. HR departments are often seen as the enemy of the people.
Yes, they are.
But when you have a good HR department, trust me, they're on point, even if they're doing things that you don't like because of your individual selfish want or need. And they had me as a star employee on the list, and they were in discussion. So when I resigned later on, I was held to pay. It got weird. But at the time, they actually called my then head of department and admin assistant into but admins basically run the department, to be fair today. Heads get replaced, they're academic.
Yeah.
And called them into a meeting and said to them point blank, he can't act for 2 years. Acting is really a single year thing. If he was acting in the first year, you all gave him a flying performance appraisal, then he has to be confirmed. So the excuse, Jen, then became, Well, he doesn't have a degree, which was true. I did not have a degree at the time. But HR then looks at me and goes, what is your GPA? Because I was doing my associate's degree at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, my GPA was like 3.7 or 3.8 or something like that. All right. Because I was going to school in the day and going to work in the day and going to school at night.
Go to school at night.
And they were like, when do you graduate? I'm in like 4 months. they're like, well, look, based on that, there's no evidence to suggest that he's not going to have a degree in short order. I think we can write this as a justification and move this along. And that's how I got confirmed to one of the most senior posts.
Wow.
That by itself became problematic because I was still 23 and the admin who ran the department was a grade 9. So she could not give me directives and, it got weird. And I mean, I know I was younger and far more immature. But at the same time, and I had my president say this to me about 2 weeks ago at my current university, because I was framed in the thinking of a school of education, I am like rabid about the defender of the student experience.
Yeah.
And I'm rabid by extension as the defender of the faculty experience.
Yeah.
So I am the guy that takes it to VP Finance or the president or what. And like, I just don't care. Because if we're not doing this for the community that we're in service to, then there is no value in doing this. So, there would always be circuits crossed because of that. I'm sure 44-year-old Lisle could give, 24-year-old Lisle quite a few tips. But I mean, that's the story of how I fell into it. If you ask 7-year-old Lisle, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was not going to be chief technician in the University of the West Indies in Trinidad. It was not. It was going to be I wanted to be a pilot because my mom worked for the airline.
Yeah.
That's why I was in the States every 5 minutes or in London or in Canada. I wanted to be a pilot who ends up as a chief technician in an AV world as a higher ed manager. I don't know.
Well, and that's the same. Yeah, well, that's the same thing. I have a degree in education, right? And yeah, I was a teacher for 3 years, and because of relocation, right, I got but I taught with a smart board. That's how I got here. So being all of this knowledge that you have, and and saying that you're
I know that I know nothing at all.
No. Saying, hearing you say that you are autistic and when that makes sense in a way in things that I have heard you talk about and the knowledge that you have. And I go, oh my God, he must have, he has a brain that just soaks
Never
it in.
turns off. It's a gift and a curse because sometimes I got up at 2:00 this morning with a thought. And it was like a DJ thought because I also spent 10 years on radio. I'm not even active. I play music for Hetma more than I do for anybody else.
I know.
Point, right? But again, if you understand the context now, when you see me in the booth in Vegas or in Orlando, it's because I have to have a social purpose.
Yes.
And that is my purpose. And music is like a lot of math in it. So I'm just very comfortable with it.
Right.
But yeah, that's how I connect to people. I don't have to talk to strangers that I'm either overwhelming if I like you or I'm underwhelming because I'm socially awkward.
Right.
I just get to play some songs and then people run over oh my God, you're so cool. I'm like, okay.
And I'm
the weirdo, right? Thank you. It's like, I have no idea what to do anymore. Just, because I'm cognizant of who I am. And by that, I don't just mean Lisle internal. It takes years to learn who Lisle is internally and befriend me and all that jazz. I'm cognizant of who I am Lisle external. Fun quick story, when I met my rep from Crestron, because we were a Crestron shop, William Strupp, Bill. A lot of people know Bill. I remember one day, Bill and I are literally on a beach in Trinidad, Maracas Bay, and we're sitting down eating a shark and bacon shark. Trust me, look it up. It's fun. Okay. Bill enjoyed it. Bill looks at me and he goes, Lisle, how did you do it? And we had the story. And then I look at him and I go, Bill, why did you believe me when I came to you? Because I did not meet Crestron or Bill with the backing of my university. I was out of pocket, self-funded, still am to this day. I recognized that I had to get my feet into the States in AV and higher ed AV. I recognized I had to make my voice be heard because there are things that could be done better. I was just doing it same way me talking to you about the Steelers.
Yeah.
And Bill looks at me and he goes, and this is why I'm saying I'm cognizant of my physical stature. He goes, because I had long dreads. I had dreadlocks all the way down to my back.
Oh,
Bill
wow.
goes, yeah. And the time I was 380. So I'm built like an offensive lineman with dreads. He goes, boy, the first 3 times you walked up to me in the booth every year. Hi, my name is Lisle Waldron. I'm from UWI. What can Crestron do for me? I was scared. I was like, is he gonna take my wallet? I'm like, Bill, that is not politically correct. And we had a good chuckle off it.
Right.
And and Bill is just like, I will never forget the dean of my faculty. I came into his office a day, Prof. Blah, and it just is right. And he takes off his glasses and he starts tearing up with laughter. He says, Lyle, sit. He said, let me tell you something, because he was Guyanese. He said, let me tell you something as an old Guyanese man. It's a young kid coming up in this thing. Don't you ever dare walk into my office ever again shouting at me, I am the dean. You are like, right? And I freeze because I'm like, oh my God. And he's still laughing, with tears running on his face, even though he dresses me down. He says,
Yeah.
Lyle, sit. So let me give you the best piece of advice that you've ever heard. You don't recognize the force that is Lisle Waldron when you enter into a space. As soon as you get somewhere, find a place to sit, because you're talking to people who are half your height. It's not going to work well. I'm like, oh snap, I never thought of it. He told me that when I was 21, and I've held that to this day. So I try to sit when I talk to people. I try to lean. I try to, I like literally kneel down a little bit, like I sink on the knees, because I understand my physical state.
Yes.
And I'm very cognizant of it. So hell of a trip being Lisle Waldron for a day. I would invite anybody, but you don't want it. It's rough.
I would take the height. Trust me. I'll take the height any day, because 5 foot for all my life is making me crazy.
You know what, Jen? You'll take the height until you hit your head walking out of a JetBlue plane. You will, right? I'm telling you, that hurt.
I'm sure it did. It did.
You turn around and all the cabin crew like, ooh.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
This is embarrassing.
I know.
So it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the story. This is the guy, the kid. I'm just a 14-year-old trapped in a 44-year-old man's body.
So talk about, because kind of the reason we got here, because I know I said something in the Hetma chat about people that were looking for postings, and if they would go through and just kind of make a note saying that the posting got filled, because I want to try and help support, obviously, because that's what we're all about. And you made a comment about, coming to the States. I'm like, what? Wait a minute.
People are always surprised when they hear me say that. And I mean, the most summarized version of this is twofold. One, I grew up from 0 to 13 being a kid who used to fly out to Trinidad to come up to the States for Thanksgiving for one day, then coming back for like New Year's, coming up for 4th of July, because my mom, as I said before, I think works for the airline, right? She worked for the airline. So there was a point in my life in single digits where I was just running around New York like a wild kid. Again, people don't cancel me. It was a different era. You can't walk around as a kid back in the day. Your parents would let you outside. You can't, and maybe you still can now, but television has tell us otherwise, but that's a different story.
Right.
So, at 7, I remember being 7, and my mother, myself, and my grandmother are in London, and she gets the flight notification that she got bumped off. So there were only 2 available seats, because we were flying on standby because company rules, right?
Right.
And she looks at 7-year-old Lisle. And again, we did not know at the time that, I wasn't just quote unquote smart. Everybody used to be like, he's such a smart kid. But, spectrum stuff, right? My mutant power. Yeah. She looks at 7-year-old me. This is my mom. I want you all to understand. And she says to me, in London, can you get your grandmother home? I'm like, yeah, I got this. And because I'd been to Heathrow so many times, I had a map of Heathrow, right, in my head. And I remember everywhere we went to, every security check or wherever, like when we walked up to the counter with the passports, everybody's looking at my grandmother, and then my grandmother looks like me, like, give them 2 passports, yours and mine. And she go, all right, cool, bet. And then she would do it, and like everybody's like, what's going on here, right? It was weird. But yeah, we came home, straight shot, got her home, because we lived with my grandma at the time.
Yeah.
So, I surprise everybody when I say to them, yeah, I'm open for work. So one thing on that is key to understand. I'm not open for work because I really want to just come live in the States because of this pipe dream or whatever is the case. I do come from a different version of America and Americana. I'm an 80s kid. I'm a Stallone was Commando, was Rambo, and Schwarzenegger was Commando kind of thing.
Yep.
So I did grow up on that, and I will always have an absolute love of the States. Like, people are freaked out when I'm like, I love the smell of a New York subway. I love the mountaintops in Denver. I love the ocean and the rivers in Eureka, California. 2 things surprise them. They're like, you've been all them places? Like, I've been more than that, right? But at the same time, for me, there's a kinship and a comfort I've always had being in the States. It's just, to me, second nature. So that was one. But the more important part on the work side of this is that I crave to be in service. And the thing is, for me, it's not that I'm not challenged. I have challenges right now. I'm in the middle of restructuring the department. I just heard my VP Finance in a meeting discussing some fiscal situations we have to deal with. Everything he was talking about is going to be central to my daily framework and operation. I have at least 10 more years of service in this university where I easily could conquer the hill. The problem for me is I could see the finish line too easily. This to me is not a challenge, and the body is not big enough for service. And then sometimes, I think more importantly, while we all in higher education clearly have a different calling in our soul, K through 12 as well, being a teacher is not easy. It's a lot of your time and your money and your crayons and your markers.
Yep.
I think sometimes people forget we too on the tech manager support side of higher ed or the tech side, we have the same callings. We have many a night where they're late. There's no overtime involved or remuneration or compensation. Sometimes there's no thank you involved. But for me, there's also the idea that in my case, the contemporaries that are around me I'm literally on an island, people.
Yes.
They don't understand who's next to them.
Yeah.
And I think the older I've gotten, the more frustrated it's gotten for me. So it makes it difficult then to be in service to people who don't understand who's serving you. Right. If you want to hear a song and you have a choice between, picking up the phone and calling Pavarotti and he will sing for you,
right,
or a choice between your iPhone and Apple Music or whatever. You don't understand who that guy is. I mean, we've heard those million stories. And anybody who thinks like I'm just blowing up my own ego here, I'm not. I'm not saying I'm Pavarotti. I'm just saying. I have said to radio station managers, Jen, when I was on radio, because radio is a competitive sport. You have polls, you have numbers. Listen, the Bulls would have never won a championship with Jordan on the bench. I just want you to sit down and think about that for a minute. So for me, that call to service and doing more is so important. And it's the only reason why I started applying for jobs outside of the country. Where I am at, there are 2 universities. Where I'm at right now, I'm the manager for all of the AV for the University of Trinidad and Tobago. It's a national university. I have 10 campuses, down from 12. We had to shut some down in some financial crises we had some years ago, on 2 islands. It is a fantastic puzzle because this is how I see it. Problem is, as I said, I've kind of solved the puzzle. I just need the funding and the executive backing to get it done. But the framework for this is in place. My team, I'm a big guy in succession planning. That's like one of the things I did for my thesis for my MBA. So I leave now. I come to the States for a month for Infocom or whatever. My team they're good. I was in Grenada. Yeah, I'm in St. Lucia the other day for my first vacation in 10 years. Thank you. That was so good. Right. And I come back and they're like, yeah, we had these failures, this, that, the other. They did not call me. They did not message me. So like, I'm really confident in my ability to create structures and those kinds of things. And let it not be said, because they will take me to task when they hear this podcast. But I have an exceptionally fabulous team.
Yeah.
They bat so far above the average. It's not funny. I am powered by fuel that I do not, underestimate or overlook at all. So here I am on the island. I've solved the problem. Great. But there's so many other problems I see. I come to the States, I hear about schools, implementing XYZ technology, and I'm sitting in a round table and somebody's like, I don't know how to get faculty to use it. I'm like, wait, you actually get money to do things without having a process for figuring out what they want? So you just get to buy like millions of dollars of stuff and then figure out what faculty needs? I'm like, oh, I need to come up here. I'm like, yo, I could do this.
And the crazy thing about that is it goes from extremes. You have the colleges and the universities that do that.
Yes.
And then you have the colleges and the universities, the small ones that are lucky to get money.
Yeah, they're on Amazon every 5 minutes and just, piecemealing it all together. And like for me, I think that was the linchpin to all of this. So before I even applied for the first job, as I said, I'm flying to the States, I'm coming up. At the time, Infocom had the EduCom sub-conference, right?
Correct.
So I attended my first EduCom in Anaheim. And then the next year, it gets flipped over to UBTech. So UBTech was doing this thing as an education sidebar. It was like a whole different hotel, a whole different show floor. And like I attended the first 2 years of UBTech. And I'm like, okay. I'm sitting there going, but I actually think I know more, as much, if not more than some of these presenters, right? So I'm like, I apply to present. They say yes. I have my first set of presentations. Yeah. I get like just mad kudos. They ask me to come back. I'm like, all right. I do a workshop on how to design classrooms on a budget. That went crazy. Like I have Craig and Britt Yenser. Yeah. They were in one of my sessions. Like I actually, when they told me, I went back to, because I still have all my files, of course. I went back to my attendance registers and there they are. I'm like, Craig Underwood, Britt. I'm like, Jesus. So I'm coming back around now to a space where this older version of me, I was on a job interview the other day for an unnamed school on the West Coast, where a guy is looking at me saying, hey, Lisle, I don't know if you remember me, but I was in one of your sessions in UBTech in about 2016. And this is me like, awkward. This is going to be weird. Well, awkward. So, yeah.
But here's the thing about that, though. You made an impression years ago.
Yes.
Right? I am a firm believer that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
So you made those impressions years ago. Those
Mm-hmm.
people that heard you probably were not in a position then to
Yes.
say, I want to talk to this guy and I potentially want to figure out how we need to bring him in because he's
Yeah.
got dreams and goals and aspirations and can make a change, right?
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward now,
Yeah.
those people are now seeing other things that you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
now understanding the scope of what you can do, the ideas that you have, how you're doing all of this because you've done all of these sessions, right, over the years. So
This is $1 million question in the room, right? Why are you still there?
what's the obstacle for you?
It's as with all things, it's multidimensional, multifaceted. So let me give you the big ones, and there are a few. So let's pretend for half a second that I was regular Joe Schmo, Lisle Waldron, who actually lived in the States for whatever reason. Because fun fact, my dad is actually a resident and has always been. I just never asked him to file for me. And because I never wanted to. I always said to myself, if I was going to make it, I was going to make it on my own 2 feet.
Okay.
And in many ways, as far as I'm concerned, I kind of have, because here I am in 2024 sitting talking to you about my experience, right? Sometimes making it is not what you want in the way you want it. It's just what it is. So barrier number one, and let's deal with the pseudo negatives first. Maybe I'm not the man in these streets, just to be a little hip hop here. Maybe I'm not the man in these streets, right?
Right.
It's a possibility. I don't think it's the case. I think where the barriers to entry come for externals. So a couple of things. One, the US legal hiring process is not the same for a non-US citizen. So things that they cannot do to you in an HR process that you could sue for,
right,
I cannot. So because of that metric, they have to be on their P's and Q's with you, Jen, whereas with me, it's different. So a fun fact, I was asked to apply for a job earlier this year. I did because of my, I don't want to say devotion, but my respect and appreciation and admiration for the individual that asked me to apply.
Right.
I applied. I get past the resume screening portion. I am on my job down here in Trinidad, and my phone rings. All right, I don't know this area code because I know my area code 718. I don't know this area code. Hello, hi Lisle. My name is XYZ. I'm from so school. I work in HR. 2 questions. 1, do you have a work visa? No. 2, do you expect us to sponsor your work visa? I don't expect it, but I guess if y'all want me, that's what y'all would have to do. The HR handler says to me, well, okay, Lisle, I can tell you at this juncture, this is not going to happen, so you can go ahead and withdraw. Imagine somebody telling you, Jen, that you could withdraw from a process. I'm like, I did not know what to do for 2 days. I message said revered gentleman, and I go, hey, I'm telling you this out of my respect and admiration for you and your position.
Right.
I'm not saying this to you for you to do anything. I'm not asking for a back channel favor. I'm telling you out of transparency. This happened 2 days ago. This was the situation. I was told to do this. I'm not sure how to proceed.
Correct.
Now,
right.
I knew getting into this, and I think I said this to at least a couple of my colleagues. It's literally a 1% chance that I'm going to get hired. But the only way to get that 1% on the table is for me to go through the process. Some of them didn't want me to do it because it is emotionally and psychologically stressful. But some of them were just like, standard Americans, like, come on, Lisle, pish tosh, we hire the best people. That's not going to happen. And have found out every time that's not how it works. So that's one level of the barrier to entry, the sponsorship of the visa. And let me be fair to organizations, even outside of higher education, Jen, as to why. There are 2 ways that I guess, rationalized this to myself. I'm not a work visa expert. I do have an MBA in HR, but let's say I'm not in the States, I'm not insured. So here's how I've broken it down to myself. Thing number 1 is sometimes these processes, and I'm not even getting into how much money it costs to get the filings done.
Right.
Right? But sometimes these processes can take 6 to 9 months. Nobody has ever hired somebody because next year we're going to need somebody. Nobody gets to justify that to HR or the finance guy. You hire somebody because you've already proven that you need resources because you're not able to deliver certain things. So we're going to need this person to do the strategy or whatever is the case. It's all fine and dandy, even if you get Lisle, even if you get the sign off on your VP HR, even if everything is lining up, you now have to deal with state. And state's going to take as long as state's going to take.
Yeah.
Who then is going to be the person responsible for that work, if you see work as a commodity, in the absence of this Lisle guy? It's more than likely going to be the same person that was advocating for you, the same person that was championing you, now has to work two jobs. And in all fairness to them, I can't ask them to do that.
Right.
And because of the structures of state and work visas, I can't even volunteer to work remotely for the period of time for free. Right? I can't even volunteer to work for free remotely in the interim, because then it means that I've technically worked illegally in the States, which means I'm now out. So like I'm out. Like, and a lot of Americans talk about, immigration the right way. Well, this is what immigration the right way sounds like in the States,
well,
right?
and this is the frustrating part for me is yes, everybody talks about that and you're trying to do it the right way.
Believe me, I could have been up there a million years ago.
That's what I was going to say. You could have probably been here.
CBP and State Department, please don't blacklist me. But let me just say some stuff here, right? I've been a DJ since 1997. I've been a DJ before I was working in higher ed. Yeah. I've had friends of mine who are now residents in the States say to me point blank that I was better than them, more talented than them, yada, yada, yada. And all I needed to do was come and sleep on the couch for 5 years until I get regularized. And I just didn't want to do it. I'm like, no, it's not that. I think I can the right way.
Well, and so here's the thing. I look at this and I go, everybody complains that it is hard to find good people. It is hard to find people that actually want to work. And it's hard to find people that want to stay in their career, right?
Yeah. So I like this.
Okay. So when you look at, because I've done this, right? And being out of work for a while and trying to do this, like I would explain to companies, because to me, I felt it was important. If you look at my resume, it looks like in a 10-year span, I worked for several different companies, but the company that I worked for changed names like 4 times.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Right? So to me, it was important that I had those companies, because those were no named companies, right? So I put them on there and I would explain, same company, changed names 4 times.
Yes.
I don't think it showed, and again, I'm just my own personal opinion, if you're changing your job or company every 2 years just because. So I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, and I hear what you're saying about hiring a person for 9 months, a year out. But are companies, are universities planning for the person that potentially be retiring?
They're not. And again, I like to, I guess because how the brain works, I get to see it's like the Da Vinci Code for me. Everything jumps off.
Yeah.
They in many ways, they can't. They should, but they can't. So a couple of things. One, in higher education, the dirty secret is we don't like to admit it's a business. So in many ways, there is a larger altruistic goal, and that's very real. We shape and mold the minds of people, and in some cases are now under attack for it. So because of that, it then becomes problematic to find senior leadership who are actually corporate minded. And I'm using that term very loosely for a reason. Because we've also seen those institutions in higher education who have a corporate leadership mindset fail. So there has to be some balance in between. And if your provost or your president or your vice chancellor, whatever your structure is going to be the most senior, most lauded engineer, literary mind, theoretical physicist, the problem there is they don't understand much about the administration of a university.
Right.
So it then becomes difficult when you have a leadership class, like C-suite person or even right under them say, hey, look, I'm doing some succession planning here. Just like we've agreed that we have to replace projectors every 7 years, my expectation is based on our numbers and our growth, we're going to need this and that. You can't have that. Then the second side of this is in higher ed, we've had budget slash year to year. So I'm talking about current higher ed.
Yes.
It is impossible to look beyond the smoke of the forest fire with all the fires that they're fighting, right? So, and again, this is why it helps to have somebody like me on your staff, because I get it. And I'm not coming to you to like add stress. I'm coming to you to say, hey, you have this going on, you have this going on. Here's the problem, here's the solution. I also know we don't have the financing or funding for it, but if we don't do this, this will happen. No, you get to do the Eisenhower and go important, critical, important, not critical, and you get to figure it out. Tell me what to do. So you don't have to now sit and figure it out when you have, high performing employees on it. Now, just to jump back to one thing, because I think the second thing I was going to tell you from that answer before is important. The other side of this, in addition to the money and the time and everything else, and I want to be clear, these are for non-academic positions like director of learning environments or the director of AV Tech or whatever it is. Because it's a lot easier to get me on your staff if you're going to hire me as a faculty member. And I'll get back to that on the end of the work visa thing, because there's a catch in this, right? So, but the other side is, okay, we love Lisle. He's Lisle. Have you not met Lisle? Like, I've had people saying that all the time in the seats. I'm so embarrassed when they do it. But you don't know Lisle? This is Lisle. You know, like, yo, calm down. I'm not like, I look like LeBron James. No, another joke we'll get to. Right? But the other side of this is, okay, great. Lisle is an 11 out of 10. And I thank everybody who, Hetma has done so much for me psychologically and emotionally, because it's really lonely on an island, literally. And it's also lonely being me in my head, literally, because I don't, like, Hetma is great for me because I have like a BC Hatchet and a Joey and a Brit Yenser and, you know, Nats and everybody in between and Troy, and everybody is such a star. And I'm sitting there with these people and they're all like, oh no, Lisle, you're the man. I'm like, no, y'all are like super, like, oh my God, right? So the other side of this is, how can a university justify to itself having a 6 to 12 month delay on a hire because he's an 11 out of 10 when there's a 7 out of 10 right next door? He's one state over and can drive to work until he moves and gets like an apartment like on site. So that calculation, that is a basic cost benefit analysis that has to be done. And it really means two things then. If we sticking to, you know, the higher ed tech managers frame, it's more than a justification thing. The justification is to get to state and to get past you like your HRVPs or whatever. It's more than a DEI thing. What it is you actually genuinely believe that without me, you're not going to be able to cross the finish line.
Right.
And that, to be fair, is 1% of 1%.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these schools are great. I remember in 2016, I was actually flown up to meet the staff at the end of a very exhaustive interview, multiple rounds of things process. Exhaustive.
I'm sure.
Remember when I say they do things to you when you're a non-US citizen? I'm going to give you a couple of those. But at the end of this thing, they fly me up. I meet the staff. We're all sitting by this round table. I was going to be the director, this director's position. And they were the managers that were directly under me. And, you know, they were doing the thing and they all questioned me. They asked questions or whatever.
Of course.
There was this guy, John. I'll never forget John, because I remember leaving that meeting. I was so looking forward to being John's boss so that I could learn from him.
Right.
So that I could learn from him, because he was older. He had like gray hair. He was clearly going to retire in maybe like less than 10 years. And I'm like, this guy, because I think he mentioned to me that he had been in higher ed longer than I was working in or I was alive. There was some weird thing.
Like, right.
What? I'm like, nah, I need to get everything from this guy when I come up. So they finally look at me and the HR person goes, okay, Lisle, you have any questions for the team? And my question to them was, okay, I've walked around this campus and I'm not seeing burning buildings and smoke coming out of windows and people running around with pitchforks. You all are doing an excellent job while being under budgeted and understaffed. How can I help serve y'all so that we could do better for this university? And they looked at each other like,
nobody ever has asked that question to them.
Excuse me? And the same John guy, because he's clearly the senior, he's the father figure in the room, he's the OG, as we would say in the community. And he looks at me and goes, I need you to communicate to the president, da 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 da. And I remember leaning back. This was the loveliest, most organic exchange. I lean back and he said, like, that's it? Have you not met me? Don't you know who I am? And everybody starts to laugh, right? But this is where it gets wicked. John instinctively, as a human, looks at the HR handler and says, everybody's still giggling, laughing. He goes, when does he start? And she immediately goes, no, we can't. We're not. I'm like, red flag, let's go. I didn't mind. I was like, all right, cool. Because I had not seen a job description ever. There was one the other day I saw, but it's been a long time since I saw a job description. I looked at it, I went, okay, me. Like, this was me. It wasn't a job to me. This was just move into this apartment, drive there and do what you do.
Well,
it was crazy.
And to that point is, I am a big believer, right? There are so many people that you're out there and you try, like you said, you try to get through the resume process. Hire the person. Hire the person And if you know that person, whether you're a higher ed institution or you're somewhere in corporate, right? To me, those are just the distinguish everything. If you're not higher ed, if you're not a university or college or K through 12, that's a whole different entity.
Different story.
Then you're corporate, right? Everything
Yes.
else in my mind is corporate. So
Correct.
if you want that person to take you to the next level, it's the person. It's not the job. Anybody can read a job description and go, okay, I can do 5 out of 10. I can learn 8, and let's just hope I get through not being able to have to do the other 2, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So it's hiring the person, and I think we've lost that.
Yeah.
I feel some organizations have lost that because, so let's ask this question though, Lisle. Is it strictly education and higher ed that you would, or if someone in corporate America said, Lisle, I've heard you, I've had somebody recommend, and we know that what you have done for a higher ed institution, you could do for our organization.
Yeah.
But would you take the leap?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, a couple of things, right? So as I said, I've been in higher ed since I was 17 and a half years old as an employee. I've actually been in higher ed since I was in single digits. My aunt, she did her PhD in, I think, like education. And it was like a gender study something, and I was the guinea pig for years and did not know. Right? Like it was like I think at the time, like boys were starting to trend downward in education as opposed to girls. And like I literally was the guinea pig at Christmas dinner. So I have been on panels for the K through 12 teachers when I was 6, 7, 8, in that same building that I went on years later to work in. When I was in high school, I was on a panel for the diploma in education teachers. And I remember, so they like brought like a couple of kids from the schools to explain to teachers what they were doing, how it affected us. I remember in that forum speaking to my English teacher to his face. And it was like 200 people. So I'm addressing 200 people, but I'm talking to you. And you know I'm talking to you. So I've had those experiences in higher ed. That said, I do a ton of work for the corporate world. I just wrapped up, I think like a year ago, maybe some more, a contract as a LMS admin and a server admin, because my brain. For a multinational NGO in Trinidad. They're downstream of the WHO and downstream of PAHO. When we were in the peak of COVID, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, the Minister of Finance wanted to be able to live stream to the nation, which is a thing. And somehow this ends up on my desk. So I go down there as a consultant and design his entire boardroom for him. So now his boardroom could do all his remote meetings, but he could flick a switch in Zoom and at the same time stream to YouTube as an address to the nation. Literally without having to call the television stations into his room. But he could do that too, because if he wanted to, he could go live on TV, and I designed the whole system. So to answer your question directly, could I work for corporate? Yes. And trust me, for me, the opportunity to serve is bigger. But obviously, to me, there is a sentimentality and a calling in higher ed that I can't shake. I would say to you this way: if the corporate world was to get me out of higher ed, that is more of a conversation about higher ed, what are we doing, than it is about the corporate world winning. Because like I'm not recalcitrant, make no mistake, I will go there and I think I could fix Boeing. I don't think anybody could fix Boeing. I'm kidding. Right? But I would happily do it because, again, for me, it's in service of. Now, being in service to shareholders on a bottom line, it's kind of sterile to me. But I'm sure I could find the end user that I could look at and go, okay, I'm doing this for you. I want to help you, right? We make a robotic arm that somebody, all right, so I'm going to help you because people that don't have an arm, I'm going to get this done for you. So I always find a way, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's so many organizations nowadays that are looking at their spaces across the organization, across the country, that they need to be streamlined. They need to be user friendly, just like your faculty. Faculty has to walk in, and because they're never teaching usually in the same space all of the time, so they need to understand. So it's the same thing. So you're doing it in a way. But the element that gets taken out of it within corporate is the student.
The students, yeah, because I miss teaching. I miss being an adjunct faculty member so much. I've not taught in, I think, like 14 years. I used to do all of the technology stuff for early childhood education in School of Ed as an adjunct. And I shall not tell a lie, I miss teaching. I miss teaching a lot. I really want to do my PhD in higher education administration.
Yeah.
Just because, like, again, I've never done a degree for a certification. I've always done degrees to answer a question. So for my MBA, the question was, okay, Lisle, for whatever reason, because remember, I don't know I'm autistic at the time.
Right.
For whatever reason, you and technology, this is easy. But people, you're not working out. What can I do to help me with people? I guess I could do an MBA. I guess I should do it in HR. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's do that. And that's how I did, like, every step of the way, I always did a degree because I wanted to learn something. I did my associate's degree in operation systems management in IT because at the time, I told you I was fighting with my quadras.
Yeah.
And I took like a year or two off of school because I was good. And then at some point, one of my subordinates, because I love learning, to me is a flat plane, right? It's not a hierarchy.
Right.
One of my subordinates, my second in command, comes to work a day and he was talking about some strategic information systems planning and management. I'm like, what?
What?
And let me see that textbook. I was like, what are you doing? He's doing a bachelor's degree in so. I'm like, where are you doing it? He's like, he's doing it, la la la. I went on the website. I looked at the school. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this. And I started the following year. He graduates, I graduate. You know, I'm his boss. And funny enough, he runs AV over for SUNY Downstate now.
Yeah.
Shout out to my guy. And you know, he's like, I'm sure, and I've never asked him because I never had to, but I'm sure he looked at that like, oh wait, you have the humility to be able to do that and not feel as if, you know, I'm trumping you or something. Nah, I've never done a degree outside of wanting to learn something.
Well, and I think that shows your humbleness as a person, that you're willing to ask a question, understand, and if you don't know, you're going to figure out how to learn, and you're not doing it in a way that you need to be better. It's, oh my God, you're taking this and that sounds really interesting. I want to do that too.
Well, yeah, when I started doing the program and then he and I started like having synergies on that, we were able to fundamentally transform the operation. And that was the goal, right? So for me, I mean, I'll tell you this much though about the corporate shift over. I think the real untapped thing that people don't know about me is, and I don't want to say because of the MBA, but because of the logical thought patterns in my head, it's kind of like when Ernst & Young and those firms started hiring autistic people to look at the numbers. But my business consultancy is the most untapped thing. So like I always do the cost benefit analyses and I always do the strat planning and I always do the whatever is the case. And for me, those are the things that I translate into the corporate world in the morning. I can work in a bank if I want to. Like I'm not even worried about the tech side. So there was a point in my life up to literally was the stop. I was thinking about joining SHRM and like just going into the HR track because I could. Right, I was thinking about doing just full programming pre-AI. I'm like, let me just do programming. I've always flirted with just becoming a full-time radio DJ. So the question for me isn't what I can do, it's what I can't. And usually what I can't do is anything I don't want to do.
Right.
I'm supremely driven by I want to help others, but then I'm also supremely driven by I want to be psychologically, emotionally happy and satiated.
Yeah.
And that for me comes with a sense of satisfaction that I've done my best to become my best, in like what John Wooden said. So yeah, for me, I think those are the little cheat codes that nobody's gonna know because they're gonna think, okay, Lisle hire a tech manager, okay, he's smart, whatever. You don't want to see me take a look at your books and say to you, okay, why do you pay Microsoft this for an E3 license when you could go with an E1 and da.
Yeah.
And I mean that doesn't mean I'm gonna be right, but you now have a different data point, going back to the diversity convo, where you now get to go, wait a minute, let me think about this. Let me see if I could apply, okay, it does not work. But these things are lessons learned from it that we could apply in this other space. So trust me, that side of me is really the cool side that I don't get to tap into a lot.
Yeah. I don't know, Lisle. Maybe it's your own business here. I see lots of things where it's, you know.
Listen, I have a registered consultancy company, right? That's how I got some of these other contracts down here. But I'm the worst at it because like I hate running behind contracts. I hate it. I hate it. Like I hate it. It's not, you have to know what you're good at. And that one is not in my wheelhouse. Right? I think that is one of my mutant powers. Is I have two of them. I'm able to break everything down into the simplest components. A buddy of mine in England said that to me. And it makes it so much easier, not just for me, but for me to convey to others. But the other thing, I know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And I'm not the guy, like especially in the male ego-driven world, I'm not the guy that Jen goes, hey Lisle, what about XYZ? And I go, I know that. Let me tell you. I'm the guy that goes, yeah, Jen, sorry, I don't know anything about it. No, I know somebody in Northwestern named Troy. Let me call Troy and see. Like I know that, but I'm very cool saying I don't know some
Yeah,
stuff.
so am
I'm
I.
so cool with it.
Yeah, and you know what? That just shows that as a person that you're self-aware, and and being
Yes.
self-aware, right?
It took 44 years, but I'm here now. So
Yeah, trust me, I am always. People will ask me questions, and I go, I know I do that, and I go, being
Yeah.
self-aware is half the battle. Now, will I not do it in the future? Probably not. I'll probably do it again.
Probably yes. And I'm
But I
trying to
know.
not. I'm trying
Yeah.
to not. But if I did, I'm sorry.
Sorry, right. Well, Lyle, I know that you are
Yeah, we
so.
on pause.
I know.
I know. We gotta go.
We could go on and on and on, and there will
Yes.
definitely have to be, I think, a part 2 with you again. And so what I want to say is to people that listen, regardless of where you are, like, again, hire the person. And Lyle is amazing. And knowing, Lyle, that you just said that you would love to be an adjunct professor that makes my brain think of a couple places that I may have to have a few conversations on for you.
Jen, fabulous. Thank you. But 10 seconds or less. The reason I said it was easier as faculty, part of having a U.S. work visa requires you to leave the country for a period of time, I think every 3 years.
Yes.
It is, again, more difficult as a proposition to pay cost-benefit analysis an employee for 12 months of work, knowing that you have to let them leave the country for one of those 12 months, than it is for faculty, adjunct or full-time, because they have summer break and they have this and they have Christmas. So I'm going to be out anyway to leave. So it becomes kind of built in if I was faculty. Yeah. So I could be faculty, end up with a work visa, and then be a director of learning environments. But I can't do it the other way around. Well, not can't. It's just really, really tough. You have to want to get me there.
Well, and I think that you have a knowledge base that's going to fit some places.
Somewhere. Somebody gonna love me.
Faculty. I have a few places in my brain that I think we need to have a conversation with, but that's just me.
Super sweet.
But Lyle, where can people find you if they want to talk to you?
So everybody hits me on LinkedIn, and I'm sorry, I'm horrible at LinkedIn, but I'm gonna try. So I think it's Lisle Waldron on LinkedIn. Don't hate me, I will send it to Jen for the show notes. Okay. But I'll tell you this, I've started doing something very cool. The original social media was text messaging. If anybody wants to get me, my number's already on the internet, so don't freak out, Jen. 868-683-2442. iMessage, WhatsApp, FaceTime audio, WhatsApp voice. Call me. Just don't call me 1 in the morning. I'm answering. Do not disturb the zone.
And mind you, a quick learning for everybody. It is Lyle currently today, since we had time.
Oh yes, time went back. So I am
time
AST,
went back,
which is like EST without daylight savings.
Yes. So right now in the fall time frame before we spring forward, Lyle is literally an hour ahead.
Yes.
So
there you go.
We had to figure that one out, because I always have to ask.
Count on your fingers. Count on your fingers. We figured it out somehow.
Exactly. Thank God I have 10 of them and 10 toes. Because I still use them, even though I'm a math teacher. I can't do basic math. I can do hard math, not basic. Well, Lyle, thank you so much for being on. I can't wait to see you in person again, whenever that may be. But I'm sure we will talk in some of the HETMA events that are potentially coming up. I know for sure we will probably see you at Infocom in June.
High probability.
High probability, yes. And guys, thank you everyone for listening. Please, any of you that are listening, take a listen to some of my sister podcasts on AVNation. We have some great ones there. I'm so honored to be part of this group. And remember, we are all more than words.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AV Nation.
This is AV Nation.